The general who freed his country's greatest treasure died the moment he succeeded. It's 1968, Panama City, Panama. A populist military officer seizes power from the wealthy elite who've ruled for decades. Omar Torrijos promises land to peasants, jobs to workers, and schools in every village. But his biggest dream burns deeper, taking back the Panama Canal from American control. For 9 years, he stares down Henry Kissinger across negotiation tables. American officials threaten and cajole, but Torrijos never blinks. In 1977, he signs the canal treaties. Panama will control its waterway by the year 2000. His people celebrate in the streets. But Washington watches nervously as Torrijos plans something bigger. He's building alliances across Central America, preparing to challenge American power everywhere. Then on July 31st, 1981, his plane takes off in clear weather. Radio contact goes silent over the mountains. They find the wreckage days later. Bad weather, officials say, though locals saw no storms. The general who reclaimed Panama's canal was Omar Torrijos. The youngest president in Africa was killed by his best friend. It's 1983. Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. A 33-year-old army captain seizes power in one of the world's poorest countries. Thomas Sankara launches his democratic and popular revolution. He vaccinates 2.5 million children in 1 week. He plants 10 million trees to stop the desert. He puts women in government and bans forced marriages. In 4 years, his country achieves food independence. No foreign aid, no French loans. For the first time, Burkina Faso feeds itself. But Paris watches in horror as their former colony breaks free. French intelligence begins recruiting inside Sankara's inner circle. His closest friend since military school, Blaise Compaoré, starts holding secret meetings. The pressure mounts as neighboring countries turn against Sankara. On October 15, 1987, Sankara drives to a council meeting. Compaoré is waiting with armed men. Gunshots echo through the building. Sankara falls, along with 12 advisors. Within hours, Compaoré announces himself as president and restores all ties with France. The youngest president in Africa was Thomas Sankara. The president who built a nation was destroyed by the very independence that made him a hero. It's 1930, Brazil. A coffee planter turned revolutionary seizes power as the country bleeds money to foreign investors. Getulio Vargas promises a new Brazil. He builds steel mills, creates labor laws, and gives women the vote. Factories rise where plantations once stood. Workers call him father of the poor. His voice reaches every radio in the country, and for 24 years, he transforms Brazil into an industrial giant. But Washington wants a Cold War ally, not an independent leader. He refuses to send troops to Korea and blocks American companies from taking Brazilian oil. Military officers whisper in back rooms. Corruption scandals appear in every newspaper. His allies abandon him one by one, and generals demand his resignation. On August 24, 1954, he walks into his bedroom in the presidential palace. He puts on his pajamas, picks up a revolver, and shoots himself in the heart. His suicide letter blames international forces for destroying Brazil's freedom. The president who chose death over surrender was Getulio Vargas. The most principled warlord in Chinese history was destroyed by the very honor that made him great. It's 1920, Beijing, China. A Confucian scholar turned military commander controls northern China while foreign powers carve up his homeland. Wu Peifu reads ancient philosophy between battles and refuses every bribe. Japanese gold flows to other warlords, but he turns it away. He dreams of reuniting China under republican ideals, not foreign puppets. His armies crush rivals who sold out to foreigners. Western newspapers call him the philosopher general. For 3 years, he's the most powerful man in China, but his closest ally, Feng Yuxiang, meets secretly with Soviet agents. Foreign money buys loyalty Wu thought was genuine. October 1924. Feng's troops turn their guns around mid-battle, abandoning Wu's forces to enemy fire. Wu's army collapses overnight. His other allies, funded by Japanese silver, join the betrayal. He flees to Beijing, watching warlords auction China to the highest foreign bidder. He dies in poverty, still refusing bribes. The warlord who trusted honor above gold was Wu Peifu. The father of the world's largest Muslim nation was destroyed by the army he built to protect it. It's 1945, Jakarta, Indonesia. A nationalist leader declares independence across 13,000 islands, uniting 300 ethnic groups under one flag. He survives Dutch attempts to reclaim their colony and builds a nation from scratch. He founds the non-aligned movement, refusing to bow to Washington or Moscow during the Cold War. His strategy is balance. Communists get cabinet posts, nationalists get ministries, and the military gets respect. For 20 years, he holds it together, but the generals grow nervous. Communist influence is rising, and they whisper about a coup plot against them. The CIA quietly encourages their fears, feeding intelligence and building connections. On September 30th, 1965, junior officers move against 6 generals. By dawn, the bodies are found. The military blames the communists and declares emergency powers. Mass killings begin across the islands. Within months, he's stripped of authority, placed under house arrest, and erased from his own revolution. The founding father who trusted his generals was Sukarno. The most effective anti-communist leader in Asia was destroyed by the country that created him. It's 1954, Saigon, South Vietnam. The CIA handpicks a devout Catholic named Ngo Dinh Diem to lead their new anti-communist state. He crushes coup after coup, builds a functioning government, and keeps the communists at bay. American aid flows freely as he proves himself the perfect Cold War ally. He survives assassins, defeats warlords, and creates stability in a region torn by war. For nearly a decade, he delivers everything Washington wants, but Diem refuses to be a puppet. He makes decisions without American approval and cracks down on Buddhist protesters filling the streets. Then he begins secret talks with North Vietnam, seeking his own path to peace. In Washington, President Kennedy grows furious. The CIA asset has become too independent. November 1st, 1963, American-backed generals surround the presidential palace as tanks roll through Saigon. Diem flees to a Catholic church where soldiers drag him to an armored vehicle. In the back of that truck, they execute him with a bayonet. The anti-communist champion killed by his American sponsors was Ngo Dinh Diem. The most faithful communist in history was executed by communists for being too communist. It's 1956, Budapest, Hungary. Student protests fill the streets, demanding freedom from Soviet rule. Moscow needs a trusted Hungarian to calm the chaos. They choose Imre Nagy, a loyal party member who helped install communist rule after the war. He served Stalin for decades, believing deeply in communist promises of liberation and justice. For weeks, he tries to balance reform with loyalty, but his genuine faith in communist ideals pushes him toward the very changes Moscow fears most. He announces Hungary's withdrawal from the Warsaw Pact, stunning the world. Soviet tanks roll into Budapest at dawn. Thousands die in the streets as the revolution crumbles. Nagy flees to the Yugoslav embassy, seeking safety. KGB agents trick him into leaving with false promises of safe passage. They kidnap him immediately and transport him to Romania. 2 years later, a secret execution ends his life. His crime was taking communist promises seriously. The most faithful communist executed by communists was Imre Nagy. The freest election in Guatemala's history elected a president who would be destroyed by bananas. It's 1951, Guatemala City. Jacobo Arbenz wins in a landslide, promising land for the landless. 90% of Guatemala's farmland sits unused while peasants starve. The United Fruit Company owns vast plantations, but farms only a fraction of their holdings. Arbenz passes bold reforms, buying unused land at declared tax values and giving it to farmers. Tens of thousands receive their first plots. The president's popularity soars, and for a time, democracy blooms. But United Fruit executives fly to Washington with a simple message: land reform equals communism. The CIA begins recruiting exiles and bribing generals. They paint Arbenz as a Soviet puppet, though he's never been a communist. In June 1954, CIA-trained forces cross the border. Arbenz orders his army to fight, but his generals refuse. Radio stations broadcast fake battle reports. Planes drop leaflets demanding surrender. Arbenz resigns and flees into exile. His democratic revolution crushed in 10 days. The president who gave land to the poor was Jacobo Arbenz Guzman. The richest man in Africa was killed for making Africa too rich. It's 1969, Tripoli, Libya. A 27-year-old army officer overthrows the king in a bloodless coup. Libya is dirt poor despite sitting on oceans of oil. Foreign companies pump the wealth while Libyans live in poverty. He nationalizes the oil fields and builds free hospitals, schools, and housing. Libya becomes Africa's wealthiest nation almost overnight. He funds liberation movements across the continent and dreams of a united Africa free from Western control. For decades, he challenges every colonial power. But in Washington and Paris, alarm bells ring. An independent Africa means lost profits and influence. They watch him create the African Union and plan a gold-backed currency to replace the dollar. Then Arab Spring protests begin, and Western jets appear over Tripoli. Bombs fall on government buildings as rebels advance through the capital. He flees through the desert, but convoy strikes find him first. Dragged from a drainage pipe, he's beaten and shot by forces backed by the same powers he defied. The Pan-African visionary who united a continent against exploitation was Muammar Gaddafi. The peacemaker who tried to save Afghanistan was murdered for refusing to fight. It's 1989, Kabul, Afghanistan. The Soviets are gone, and President Mohammad Najibullah stands alone. Civil war rages across the country. Warlords control the mountains. Pakistan arms the Taliban in the south. But Najibullah chooses diplomacy over bullets. He offers power-sharing deals to his enemies. He pardons former rebels. He opens peace talks with every faction. For 3 years, Afghanistan holds together through compromise and negotiation. But the extremists see his outstretched hand as weakness. The Taliban calls him a puppet. Warlords reject his peace offers and advance on the capital. By 1996, Kabul is surrounded. Najibullah takes refuge in the United Nations compound, still believing in dialogue. Taliban forces storm the building on September 27th. They drag him into the street as crowds gather. They beat him with rifle butts, then hang his body from a traffic post for all to see. The peacemaker who died trying to unite Afghanistan was Mohammad Najibullah.